Welcome to the strange Casebook. 20 miles off the west coast of Scotland, out where the Atlantic runs unbroken for 3,000 miles, there is a small, steep island of black rock called Eilean Mor. In December of 1900, 3 men were living there, tending a brand new lighthouse. A few nights after midwinter, a passing ship noticed that the great light was dark, and when a relief boat finally fought its way out to the rock, the keepers were not there. The doors were shut. The lamps were clean and ready. The beds were empty. And of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, there was no sign at all. There never would be. Tonight, the record, not the rumors. And this is a case where that line matters more than most. Because almost everything you think you know about the Flannan Isles lighthouse is the legend, not the truth. So let's take it apart, carefully, and see what is actually left standing. First, the place. Eilean Mor is not somewhere people live. It is a wave-battered slab of rock with sheer cliffs on every side. No shelter, no harbor. Only 2 narrow landings cut into the stone where, in calm weather, a boat might just come alongside. The lighthouse had been lit for barely a year. 3 keepers worked it in rotation, cut off from the world for weeks at a time, with nothing around them but sea and sky and the sound of the swell. Around the 15th of December, a steamer passing in the dark noted that the light was out. A serious thing, but not at once reported. The relief vessel that was due to bring supplies and change the men was held back, day after day, by foul weather. It was not until the 26th of December, the day after Christmas, that the boat finally reached the rock. The relief keeper went up alone. No flag had been raised to greet the boat. No one came down to the landing. He found the entrance gate closed and the doors closed, and inside, the lighthouse cold and silent. The clock had stopped. The lamps had been cleaned and refilled, ready to be lit. The last entry in the logbook had been made on the 14th, with a note for the 15th. And of the 3 keepers, there was nothing. Now, here is where the legend takes over. So let me show it to you, and then take it away. The story you have probably heard goes like this. A meal sat half-eaten on the table. A chair lay overturned, as if a man had leapt up in terror. And in the logbook, the keepers had written of a storm so dreadful that one wept and one fell silent, and all 3 prayed, even though the weather, by every other account, had been calm. It is a wonderful, chilling story, and almost none of it is true. The overturned chair, the abandoned meal, the terrified diary, these come for the most part from a poem written about the mystery years later, and from tellings that grew in the retelling. The real logbook held no such horror. The real table held no famous, untouched meal. What the legend gives you is a haunted house. What the evidence gives you is something colder, and in its way, sadder. Because there was real evidence out at the West Landing, the more exposed of the two, and the man who investigated, the superintendent, recorded it plainly. The damage out there was extraordinary. Ropes that had been carefully stored were torn loose and strewn about. Iron railings were buckled and bent. A great block of stone had been shifted, and a heavy wooden box, fixed in a crevice in the rock more than 100 feet above the normal reach of the sea, had been wrenched open, and its contents flung out. 100 feet above the sea. For water to reach that box, to break it, to bend iron at that height, the Atlantic must have risen in a way that is difficult even to picture. A wall of green water climbing the cliff. And there was one more detail. Of the 3 sets of oilskins and sea boots the keepers wore against the weather, 2 were gone with the men. The third had been left behind. One of them, it seemed, had gone out into a December afternoon on a storm-lashed rock without stopping to put on his coat. From those pieces, the superintendent drew the conclusion that has stood ever since. Something, a rope to be secured, equipment to be saved before the rising sea took it, had drawn the keepers down to the west landing. 2 went prepared. A third, perhaps seeing the danger, perhaps running to help, went after them without even his oilskins. And while they were down there, on the wet stone at the edge of that terrible water, a wave came that none of them survived. The sea took all 3 and closed over them, and left the lamps clean, and the door shut, and the kettle cold. That is the likeliest answer, and it is almost certainly the right one. No ghost, no abandoned meal, no terror scrawled in a logbook. Only 3 working men, a rope that needed tying, and an ocean that does not care how careful you are. And yet, notice that even the plain answer leaves a hole at its center. No one saw it happen. No one was ever found. We can tell you with reasonable confidence how the keepers of the Flannan Isles most likely died. We cannot tell you the last thing any of them saw, or which of them went out without his coat, or why. The lighthouse was relit, and has burned ever since, automatic now, with no one to keep it. But for the 3 men who were there that December, the record closes the way the sea did, over them and without a word. Until the rock gives up what it knows, the file stays open. I'll see you at the next. If you'd like to sit with more cases like this, subscribe. The file stays open.